Hi, I'm Mita. Come write with me. We've been doing a series on point of view, and I hope that you have been checking out my other posts on this. There are many different points of view that you can use in when you're writing fiction or non-fiction. They are commonly the first person point of view, where you write something as I ate this, I did this, I went there. You could have the third person point of view, where you go he, she, or they did this, ate this, went there. You could have the second person point of view, where you say you did this. And you can have multiple points of view, which is what I'm going to do a short post on right now, so that you have a bit of an idea. Now, there are times where people that I'm teaching or mentoring, or whose writing I'm looking at, will say, but what if I want a multiple point of view? Is that a bad idea? No, I don't think so. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. But it is something that you have to be a little bit careful with and cautious with, because it can get very confusing. So when you look at historical, slightly more classical novels, so for example, I did a post on distant third point of view, and I used excerpts by Dickens and Alcott, who wrote Little Women. What they did was they were so distant that they could have an idea of what was going on in the heads of pretty much everyone in the scene, but they weren't too close to any one particular head. Sometimes they were a bit closer to one than others, but they were privy to all of them. In contemporary novels, we don't tend to do that. If you shift point of view like that, so you're in this person's point of view, person A, and then within that story or within that chapter, you shift over to this person's point of view, meaning that you can't just see only their actions, you can actually go inside their head. Your editor will probably say, what happened here? The point of view shifted. Okay, so this is where you have to be a little bit cautious. Now, you can play with this. So for example, in my Regency novels, you actually have the UK version of the three covers of my trilogy, my Regency trilogy. There's Leela, there's Anya, and there's a bookmark coming for Mira very soon, so look out for that. But I write them in the third person, but in each book there are 2 points of view. There's the female protagonist's point of view and there's the male protagonist's point of view. The female protagonist's point of view pretty much stays at almost all the way through the book, except for a few chapters which we see from the male protagonist's point of view. So what I do, because I just think it's easier and cleaner, and you won't get into this hassle of whose point of view are we, and it's very confusing for the reader, and your editor won't go, hello, whose point of view are we here? It's easier to just divide it by chapters. So for me, there are Mira chapters and there are Finn chapters in my third novel, Unladylike Secret. And I don't label them, because we just didn't label them from the start of the series, and so I didn't want to change it for any of those novels. Each of them has 2 points of view, but they're not labeled. But what I tend to do is, at the start of a chapter, I'll say Finn thought, Mira thought, right? Things like Finn did this, Mira did this, Finn saw. So very quickly the reader goes, we're now in Finn's point of view chapter, or we're in Mira's point of view chapter. So what you can do if you want multiple points of view, so for example, you might have 10 different points of view, right? There are novels like that where there's loads and loads of points of view. And at that point, it is going to get very confusing if you don't have labeled chapters. So actually the easiest way to have chapters at that point is to just label them by the name of the character whose point of view chapter it is. So if you have 5 points of view, 3 points of view, 10 points of view, there are absolutely novels like that, then do label the chapter with the name of the point of view character whose chapter it is. Because what that will avoid is, it will avoid this feeling of, what just happened? Where are we? Who's talking? Whose thoughts are these? So that's one way of doing it. Now, people do play with that. So for example, there's a short story by George Saunders in which, instead of chapter by chapter, because it's a short story, he just shifts point of view before you realize he's done it. So you kind of have to backtrack, and you have to go, wait a second, something happened here, because we weren't in this character's point of view, we were in this character's point of view, what happened? So you do have to figure it out, and there aren't even section breaks, so you do kind of really need to use your head and go, wait a second, we were just looking at character A from character B's point of view, but all of a sudden we're looking at B from character A's point of view. It's quite interesting, and it's a really, it's really clever, it's cleverly done, and it's a really clever device, but it should be used sparingly, because people will get quite tired of it if you have to do it all through a novel. In a short story, it can be a quirky thing to do. So what I would say is you can absolutely have multiple points of view in a novel, and sometimes it's useful. Why is it useful? Because one character doesn't know everything. Right? So in some cases, multiple points of view, what they offer is different perspectives. So you could have a he said, she said kind of novel, they said, a kind of novel where you literally want to know, how does this person feel about it, but how does this person feel about the same situation? It's quite often used in love stories and romantic novels, but it's also used in other sorts of novels and mysteries where you want us to build an idea of a situation based on different multiple points of view and not just on one point of view. So you can do that. Just be cautious of the things that I said, that you can't easily do that within a section or a chapter and just shift without any indication that it's happened. That is where an editor will go, what just happened? Whose point of view are we really in? So have a think about that. How can you do it chapter by chapter or section by section? Why aren't you dividing it by chapter if it is a multiple point of view? Is there a reason why you don't want a different chapter by a different character? If you are shifting it within a chapter, it is confusing. So why are you using it? So, just having that in mind doesn't mean that you can't, but just having it in mind that putting those easy labels or just delineating by chapter can really help a reader stay with you and realize why you're changing points of view. In other cases, like the George Saunders case that I said about, it's a little bit different, because they might be using it as a device because they want you to use your head as a reader in a slightly different way than in other stories and novels. So just keep those things in mind, and do check out my other posts and point of view, because then you might get an idea for experimenting with point of view and how you can use it to your best advantage as a writer. Do try all of the experiments. So I hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, do tune back in. I tend to post once or twice a week, and often it is about creativity, inspiration for writers and creative people, why creativity is so goddamn important, and also craft techniques and tips. I will also be doing posts on insider tips about the publishing industry. So do keep tuned, and so that you don't miss a post, do subscribe. It's free, and it means that you know exactly what's going on the channel. Good to see you today, and thank you for hanging out with me. If you find these point of view posts useful, if you feel like it, do get in touch with me and maybe post in the comments a little excerpt of a writing exercise that you tried, and I will definitely comment on it. And you can do the same on my social media, various social media profiles, which are on Insta, X and Blue Sky, and do get in touch on those and tell me how you got on. I would love to know. So thank you for listening, and see you soon again.